So, hello everyone. So this is going to be the fourth video, and it's going to review the issues section. Okay. So identifying an issue or issues to assist your reader in understanding how you are categorizing your object of study. Classify your research by one of the following issues. Select one, but not more than two issues listed below. And the reason why I just want you to select no more than two is because I don't really want anyone to do more work than is really necessary to be able to complete and accomplish their objectives in writing the essay. So just identifying two issues maximum is good enough, but at the very minimum, you're going to select one. Okay. And then and I'm going to explain what each of the points or the social issue, economic issue, political, and cultural issues are. And then based on how you see your particular object of study, then you're able to classify it in relationship to that and then write a paragraph or two. Sorry. If you select one issue, you're going to write one paragraph. If you select two issues, you're going to write two separate paragraphs. Not a long single paragraph because that's just too tedious to read. Okay, because remember, you want to be able to structure and format your essay to make it easy for your reader to be able to read through your essay. And if it's not formatted properly or not, or the idea is not presented in a specific way, it just makes it much more challenging for your reader to read through. And then that's when you lost them. You don't want to lose your reader at the beginning, middle of your essay. You want them to read all the way through and then have them determine how they're going to evaluate your essay once they're done reading the last paragraph, the last sentence, and the last word and last period of your manuscript. Okay, so this is why I'm trying to provide as much detail and information for you to be able to accomplish those goals. Okay, now, so this is what I mean by a social issue. So a social issue can revolve around, general interactions or activities of the everyday, but it also can deal with issues of race and ethnicity, gender and sexuality, just to sort of give you examples, right? Um, but also based on you deciding to be a sociology major, you should be able to explain what a social issue is based on prior sociology courses that you have taken. Because if you recall, I sort of mentioned at the beginning of the semester that one of the biggest criticisms I have about education in the United States, and particularly at the university level, excuse me, university level, is the fact that we tend to fail to show students how to integrate the things that you've learned in your courses, because the experience is supposed to be a cumulative experience, and by accumulating like readings and writings and so on and so forth, that's also another way of how you develop your competency and your proficiency in understanding what sociology is. Okay, so it's not just taking classes just to graduate, right? There's a reason why you selected sociology. Okay, now with that said, I hope it makes sense when I talked about social issues. And then the next one is going to be economic issues, and this could deal with issues like class, wealth, wealth distribution, and poverty. Right. So I'm trying to give you an example. Uh, an example of class could be how the working class and even the middle class have been struggling economically. Part of the economic struggle can be identified and be traced back to when we went through the COVID pandemic, and then you had corporations increasing their prices to try to make up for lost profits during the was it 2 years of almost staying at home, right, and self isolating because of the COVID pandemic. Um, and also when we started and when society started to reopen again, there was another spike in prices, and part of that was because of how shipping containers in the port of Los Angeles or the Long Beach port and other ports of entry along the coastal um, around the United States, there were shipping containers backup, and that also led to higher prices because there wasn't enough product entering the United States to sort of offset the increase of price due to the lack of number of a specific type of item that you couldn't find at a store that you went shopping at or online. Right. Um, Another example of wealth would be, for example, what's his name? Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, because apparently Trump selected them to be the head of a non existing agency that is going to try to cut government spending. And I just saw in the news a day or two ago that Musk and Ramaswamy have identified about, I believe it said $200 billion in cuts because they're planning to try to cut, I believe, $2 trillion from the U.S. government, but or for the government budget. And ironically, or not so ironically, a lot of the budget cuts that they want to do is based on cutting the Veterans Affairs Administration's budget, cutting the budget of the Department of Education, cutting the budget of Social Security. All right. And a lot of these programs are needed by people that have special needs that need to be fulfilled. Right, because I can almost guarantee you that Elon Musk is not going to cut any of the contracts that he has with the federal government. Right, I can guarantee that. Okay, so it's important to understand and pay attention, especially with the new incoming administration. Right, but that's a different discussion altogether. But this is just sort of trying to highlight what would be an economic issue, right? And also, like, yeah, it deals with poverty, about like how many people are impoverished in this country, and so on and so forth. Now I'm going to start speak about political issues. So political issues, you notice that there's a lot of different examples of how you're able to classify a political issue. So, for example, sorry about that. You could look at political issue and look at political debates. Um, in a political debate currently would be the issue of should the U.S. government hold Israel responsible for what it does in Gaza or in the West Bank. Right, the ICC found that and issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu and some other members of his cabinet. All right. And then the response of the United States was, and especially, but this came more from conservative Republicans, where I think it was Josh Hawley. He said, if they do issue the arrest warrant, the country, the ICC and the members of the ICC and their respective countries are going to suffer because they issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. All right, so that would be a political debate. Okay. Um, so then you could also look at laws as a political issue. The most recent one I could think of is um, uh, the Roe v. Wade decision, or the Dobbs decision that rescinded Roe v. Wade on June 24th, 2022. Right. And the reason why I remember that date is because the decision came out on my daughter's 18th birthday. And then I said, happy birthday. You have less rights today than you did the day before. All right. So passing of certain laws can be looked at as a political issue. For example, the example that I use on society and crime, I classify it as a political issue because of how crime has been used to push forward certain type of public policy in order to regulate a certain type of behavior, right? And that has led to what we call today mass incarceration, right? So like hopefully this makes sense in terms of looking at laws, but you also could look at legal issues. All right. Yesterday in the Supreme Court, there's a new a court hearing about. I think it came from the state of Tennessee, looking at transgendered individuals and the health care that they get. But they're focusing mostly on high school students, right? And that's a huge issue. It was an issue in this current election cycle, and apparently Trump was able to use um, the misunderstanding of transgendered identity and transgendered individuals along with the transgender community because of not a lot of people know or have had experience with people who are transgendered. So then again, the act of or the experiencing of fear and of the unknown was used to help Trump win this election. Okay. So then, so that could be an issue, or another would be, sorry, another legal issue would be over immigration. Because if I remember correctly, this month or next month in Florida, a law takes effect that you cannot drive in the state of Florida if you're an undocumented immigrant. Or let's say, for example, I have a cousin who's an undocumented immigrant, and then I ask him, "Hey, do you want to take a trip with me to Florida so we can go to Disney World or Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida?" And he says yes, and we fly there, and then we're driving, and then I get pulled over by a state trooper in Florida, despite he being my family member, but his undocumented status becomes his dominant status. So then I could be arrested for human trafficking, even though that I'm just driving my cousin with me to go visit Universal Studios or Disney World. Right. And then there's another state, I think it's Arizona, because I just heard about it recently, like within the last 24 hours. Or, oh, sorry, Missouri. Missouri is that now people can be deputized, like the citizens of Missouri can be deputized and they can report a person if they believe they're undocumented and potentially get a $1,000 reward for for the the detaining, the identifying, detaining, and deportation of an undocumented immigrant. So now in Missouri, it has incentivized people to look for people who they think are undocumented, even though that they might be a legal resident, or they're here under some type of protective status, or that they were even a natural born citizen. Right. So um, people in Missouri are not necessarily going to think about, oh, is this white person standing next to me an undocumented immigrant, or am I going to look at the brown and black person and sort of look at them as undocumented immigrants and report them, and then hopefully earn $1,000 for each person that is successfully identified, processed, and deported. That would definitely be a legal issue, right? And then finally, you could also have court cases and decisions, just like I mentioned about the court case hearing about transgender care, as well as the Dodds decision or any other court case that can happen within the U.S. legal system. Right. So then that's what you would classify as a political issue. And then lastly is cultural issues. And this could deal with and like symbols, meaning interpretation, but also, which I forgot to add, morals and values. That is definitely a cultural issue. Right. Now, I'm just going to talk about symbols. So a symbol could be anything from a flag to a special type of iconography, right? And iconography is just a thing that has a special meaning to it, right? Like flags. If you're a U.S. citizen, we are taught that you should be respectful to the flag, respect the flag. You pledge allegiance to the flag, right? And it's a powerful unifying symbol. But then also money can be a symbol because money is a social status. It can determine a person's class. It could afford them a certain type of lifestyle if you have enough money, or even not having enough money could also afford another type of lifestyle. But you sort of have to pay attention to the meaning of the symbols and how the community itself defines that symbol. Right? It's just like when I teach social psychology, or when I teach juvenile delinquency, um, you know, you look at bandanas and what bandanas mean, like a blue bandana, a red bandana, a purple bandana, black, gold, all these different colored bandanas and what those bandanas mean. Because they have a particular meaning to those people that participate in a certain type of action and behavior. Okay. So that's what I mean by symbols as a cultural issue. But then you could also look at the meaning of what those symbols have or hold for a particular community or a group of individuals, right? And also how we interpret things, right? So, like for example, an issue of interpretation is the swastika, right? In modern times, the swastika is viewed as a Nazi symbol, and it has a very particular meaning. It means white supremacy, violence against others, and so on and so forth. But then, like for example, in Hindu culture, Hindu iconography has the swastika as a symbol of power. Right. And even Native Americans, and if I remember correctly, the Navajo or the Navajo Dene, they have a swastika and it represents lightning. But at least for Native Americans, they can't necessarily use a swastika out in the open because of the over domineering connotation associated with Nazism and Hitlerism and fascism. Right. So then when you're looking at your topic, you want to make sure that the classification makes sense and that you're able to explain and defend the choices that you make when you select an issue. And remember, at the very minimum, you're going to select an issue. And at the very maximum, you're going to select two issues, right? All right. So then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop and then I'm going to go to the purpose.